Hi, I'm Harry Munro-Clark. I'm here with Craig Stobo, Professional Director and Business Owner. Pleasure to meet you.
Hi Harry.
What did you study at university and how did your degree prepare you for the world of business?
My first year was Russian politics, English and economics, and I loved economics and English the most, and I kept going with that through to a honours degree in economics and a subsidiary in English. I loved economics and the study of solving the allocation of scarce resources amongst competing wants, which is what economics is. In terms of preparation for the outside world, I think university here at Otago teaches you how to solve problems, and ultimately all problems come back to what your customer needs or has, whoever that customer might be. And taking that concept combined with hard work prepares you pretty well for the outside world.
You are an independent director of New Zealand Local Government Funding Agency Limited. What does your directorship entail?
Well, that was interesting because that was a start-up concept back in the Capital Markets Task Force days in the midst of the GFC, and 9 councils came together to try and solve the problem of getting cheaper funding at a time when the banking sector was really stressed. So my role initially was chairman of the establishment board to try and get the thing off the ground, and it was incorporated in December 2011, and the first tender was February 2012, but we had a board of 6 and a staff of me and a PA in the first month while we got a CEO. So we had to hire the CEO, then he had to go and hire staff underneath that. So that was a particularly challenging role because it was taking a concept with funding from both the Crown and local authorities and building a business from scratch. So now as chairman of the board, one of 6 directors, still an independent director, you have a duty of care to the company, to look after the company and its broader stakeholder interests, but also to monitor and ensure the performance of the CEO for the organisation is in keeping with your objectives. So you've got a sort of a dual role as independent chairperson. You're looking after all stakeholders on behalf of the board, which is the duty of care, so with all your fellow directors and keeping those directors on song, and then beneath that making sure the CEO is doing their job.
You have worked as a diplomat, economist, investment banker and CEO. Which role was the most challenging and why?
They're all sort of slightly different challenges. The diplomatic role was my first job, so you're learning good work habits and figuring out how workplaces happen and your role in that. The hardest one in some senses was the CEO role at BT Funds Management, where I had to deal with 4 changing shareholders in 4 years. So from Bankers Trust to Deutsche Bank to Principal Group to Westpac, keep my 70 staff motivated and look after all our clients of a $3.5 billion portfolio. But during that time we won Best Place to Work 2 times and Best Place to Work once and Fund Manager of the Year twice. So I'm pretty pleased that as a group, and it's not just me obviously, it's the group making sure that we did the best for our clients and kept them front of the mind, but that was very hard.
You've held a number of directorships. What is your view on mandated minimum independent board representation?
I think the only criteria that I would look at is rather than a minimum number, because all boards are different sizes. I'm in boards between 3 directors to 6, and my advocacy would be for a minimum of a majority of independent directors, regardless of the size.
What attributes do you look for in graduate recruits?
3, I look for skills. I look at the skills of the persons that are coming through the door. I look for the energy. Have they got energy? If you've got energy, you can do lots of things with those sorts of people. And then integrity. And the flip side is, if you have the first 2 with a graduate, but you don't have the integrity, it causes all sorts of problems. So those 3 things.
What can students do to best themselves for the world of business?
I think there's a couple of things. One is work hard and learn your subjects, so master your subjects as best you can. But while you're not at university, or while you're not studying, take time out to do things in the community or in your clubs and societies or in your hostels or with your flatmates, to go and do things socially. That may not necessarily mean that you have to take on a non-profit type business or operation or community scheme, but it is working with others outside of study. So you get a broad exposure to a range of different issues that are useful when you come into work.
To the chairman of a number of boards, what extra responsibilities does a chair need to manage?
Well, the extra ones are the gelling of the directors together, so making sure that you've got the best directors for that time and that place and the growth of that business. which is kind of making sure you get that duty of care to the company sorted. And secondarily, it's making sure that the CEO is the right CEO for that stage of growth, and that he or she is working for all stakeholders to the level of performance that you need.
Who do you admire and why?
That's a really hard question, and I don't have an individual person, but I admire people who stand up for what they believe in and are prepared to back themselves against the crowd. That's quite admirable when the flow of thought or the flow of problem solving is going in a particular direction and someone says, hey, have you thought about things in a different way, and use that lateral courage to stand up and say, hey, this is a better way.
How do you find a balance between work and personal commitments?
Well, I kind of think at the end of the day, you've got to think about the reasons why you do work, and I think you do work to generate outcomes for others. That might be the community, your family, your friends, etc. So to get that balance right, you have to think about why you're working. In terms of hours, it's making sure you can devote enough time through the course of the day to family, friends, hobbies and interests. It's much harder when you're a full-time CEO. You have to, or for that matter, full-time employment, you've got to dedicate some time. If you're much more of a portfolio worker where you've got flexibility, it's obviously easier. But you've got to think about why you work.
To conclude, what is one piece of advice you'd like to offer to soon-to-be Otago graduates?
I would say master your subjects extremely well. Make sure you take into account and experience the full opportunities here at Otago, not just the lectures but the outside environment, the clubs, societies, trips, get to know the region, and take those ideas and go out to the workforce with a strong tailwind.
Thank you very much for your time and best of luck with the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview.